All right, so for I don't know. This is an idea. It may be dumb, but I've had a lot of people kind of asking about more of like the learning of the Jews, like how can we um, learn what the Jews thought about certain things, kind of incorporate it. So for a couple weeks, maybe just kind of share some different things. So Louis Ginsburg, a very popular rabbi, wrote the Legends of the Jews. It's a 7-volume collection, and it goes through just kind of chronologically through the Bible. And so one thing that I wanted to share just from the very beginning here, just kind of maybe sharing a tidbit each time. So the very first section is about the creation of the world, but I think I'll share more about it, the creation a little bit later on. But this first one about the alphabet, since it's kind of pertaining to what we're doing. So it's like 3 or 4 pages about how the alphabet was created. And well, not necessarily about how it was created, about the alphabet in relation to the beginning of the world. And so when God was about to create the world by his word, the 22 letters of the alphabet descended from the terrible and august crown of God, whereon they were engraved with a pen of flaming fire. They stood round about God, and one after the other spake and entreated, create the world through me. The first to step forward was the Tav. It said, O Lord of the world, may it be thy will to create thy world through me, seeing that it is through me that thou wilt give the Torah to Israel by the hand of Moses, as it is written. And anyway, it kind of goes through here for a couple pages of each of the letters stepping forth and kind of giving their petition, create the world through me. But they keep getting not rejected, but saying, oh no, there's many other words that come through you that are good and bad, and we have to have a perfect letter in order to begin the creation. And so it comes down, so it works its way backward from Tav, clear through the alphabet to Bet. And when Bet steps forward, it says, or does it say, O Lord of the world, may it be thy will to create the world through me, seeing that all the dwellers in the world give praise daily unto thee through me. As it is said, blessed be the Lord forever. Amen and amen. The Holy One, blessed be he, at once granted the petition of Bet. He said, blessed be he that cometh in the name of the Lord. And he created the world through Bet. As it is said, Bereshit, God created the heaven and the earth. The only letter that refrained from urging its claims was the modest Aleph, and God rewarded it later for its humility by giving it the first place in the Decalogue. So just kind of an interesting little legend that the Jews kind of pass down. They often tell that story in a variety of different ways, mostly to children, kind of as a bedtime story or something like that. But anyway, just a little snippet of a legend from the Jewish community or tradition. I don't know what you call it, but anyway, thought it was interesting.
That's cool. Who was the author of that series?
Louis Ginsburg. So
Louis Ginsburg.
yeah, I don't even know like a good time frame for him. Just a second. So he was born 1873 and died 1953. So around that time, he's just compiling all of these legends that have been passed down. He references a lot in these books to like Josephus and some of these other authors that have kind of come through post exile and things. So anyway, just an interesting collection of works. I'm not always going to be pulling directly from him necessarily, but I've been asking around to lots of different people to kind of give me some of the manners of the Jews and things, and this is like the most heavily referred to one. For example, our guest tonight, E. Douglas Clark, his footnotes are extensive in that book, the Blessings of Abraham, and a lot of the footnotes come from the Legends of the Jews. So anyway, for what it's worth, I'm going to be quoting from kind of Kabbalistic sources sometimes and different things, but just kind of pulling a little tidbit of a story.
I didn't even put it together that he was the author of the Blessings of Abraham, right? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Blessings of Abraham.
That book blows my mind. I love it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Good job, Cameron. That's so cool.
Yeah. All right. So diving into kind of a quiz. I might work with only a handful of people, but I want to try this before we did like the Kahoot quiz kind of a thing, and here with the Quizlet, it's a lot better of a platform, and so I would like to try doing it really quick. So as we go, just a second, I should have not shared my screen until I was ready. Do biblical study. So just some of the terms from lesson 1. And so let's do individuals. All right, so here on the side, just like always, you can go to quizlet.live and go in with this 6-digit code, or you can open this up on a phone and play that way. We'll see if this works.
Cameron, remember when you helped me bookmark this a long time ago?
Uh-huh. You don't have to have it bookmarked. You can just go to this website right here. So Quizlet.live.
Well, I opened up what you had. It's at the wrong place.
Oh no, yeah, you can go there too if you'd like.
But how do I get to what we're trying to do? Like, put in that little code where?
Yeah, so type in this website, quizlet.live.
.live? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Does that work? And then you type in that 6-digit code. And it doesn't need capitals or the dash or anything.
Okay.
All right. Is everyone good? If I need to wait, speak up or forever hold your peace. All right.
Hey, Cameron, I'm in the car, so I'm not able to do it. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Was I supposed to do something right there? Did I miss it?
No, you're good.
I'm confused. I'm saying kangaroo or something.
Yeah, so
What?
it puts us into like these team names by animals or whatever. So you're learning just as much as I am. I haven't done this live with anybody, so no worries. We'll just kind of figure it out.
What's it asking for? Like that thing that's up on top, we're supposed to see what that is?
Yeah. So there should be a word, and then it should give you 4 different options.
And then just choose one of those things. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So it looks like it's giving it all to us very privately. I thought it would be something kind of like the Kahoot where we could all see the questions and answers. So anyway, we probably won't replicate this one again because I thought it was a little bit different. But anyway, so for those that aren't participating, like on my phone, it gives me a word from this week and then gives me 4 different English options to see if like what the correct
That's-
answer is.
That's nothing like what I'm seeing on mine. I must be in the wrong place.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't as well as like I thought it was going to be for a group kind of presentation. Sorry. Oh, okay. So it looks like whoever gets there first, did it cut everyone else off as soon as somebody else won? Yeah, looks like. Okay.
Good job, Cameron.
Well, you think that I would know how to pronounce the words yet, but anyway, sorry. Yeah, that was kind of a fail. So lesson learned. I won't do that one again.
It was still fun.
But yeah, anyway, if you do go on to Quizlet, it has all of those that you can take whenever you'd like to. It's just kind of a fun interactive way to do the quizzes. But that's good to know. While we have E. Douglas Clark, I'll probably like go and create one of those Kahoot ones. So do it a little bit better.
I don't know.
Anyway, sorry.
I'm slow on stuff like that. I don't know.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's just technology. All right. So we learned all of the different animals and things, but there was a lot of grammar intermixed in that that video. So let's take a look at the grammar section of that Aleph with Beth provides here, and kind of take a look at some of these different structures. So it first talks about interrogative pronouns. So in biblical Hebrew, there is no question mark, although they do use it a little bit here in the Aleph with Beth lessons, and you'll see some more modern Hebrew using a question mark, but it's not something that you would see in like a Bible. So you can identify questions by their interrogative pronouns, such as what or where, etc. So in these lessons, all sentences, including questions, will end with this symbol. We call it a colon in English, but it's called a sof pasuk. Or sorry, sof pasuk. And so the two different words that they introduce in this first lesson are ma, which means what, and aye, which means where. Yeah, so you'll see ma, ze, what is this? Ze ish, this is a man. And then in the feminine, the article has to change. So mazot, when you're referring to something that is feminine and asking what that feminine thing is, mazot, zot, isha. So that ma is what?
Cameron, what does it mean when you have like they-ish and there's the mark before the I? What does that indicate?
Yeah, I had the same question. It seemed really weird. So it looks to be the little apostrophe looking thing just denotes an aleph transliterated into the English. And so anytime that there's an aleph, they put one of those little apostrophe things to kind of give a placeholder to a silent letter.
Okay.
But yeah, when we're transliterating, it's not going to be super necessary to include that. But yeah, that's what it comes out to be in these grammar lessons here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And next we move to the definite article. So the definite article, the, is a prefix attached to the beginning of the word, and it's ha. And that can either be a patach or a kamatz. And where does it say? there's somewhere in the book that it says, see lesson 7 for more information on when you would use a patah versus a kamatz. But it basically comes down to what is the letter after it. And anyway, we'll learn that when it comes to lesson 7. But just knowing that the sound is the same. So whenever you hear a ha before a word, it means the. So there is no indefinite article like an a or an an. Instead, an indefinite noun will have no article. So compare ish with ha-ish. Ish is man, but ha-ish is the man. The definite article occurs on nouns and also on any adjectives and demonstratives that directly modify them. So for example, we've already seen in this lesson, when we have the word this, ze, that ze is masculine and zot is feminine. And so haze and hazot would also need to carry that ha in front of it when that article is directly modifying them. So this helps us to pair an adjective or a demonstrative with the noun it modifies in the same phrase. So kind of taking a look at what that looks like here. So there's the two different ha's, and we'll start kind of seeing those interchange here. So when we're talking about the big bull, hapar, the bull, ha gadol, because gadol is an adjective that directly, what did they say? Directly modifies the noun. Hapar hagadol, so the big bull. But if we wanted to say this bull, we would say hapar haze. And so it's kind of, if we were to directly transliterate it, hapar, the bull, the this. But since we're kind of taking those adjectives and modifying the noun directly, even though it carries that ha, it doesn't transliterate, and we don't have to put the bull, the this. We can take that second the out of it. So it's a little bit hard to get used to, but I promise it, like after like lesson 4 or 5, it'll be so natural that you'll get the handle of it really quickly. So the third thing is adjectives. So an adjective describes a property or characteristic of a noun and follows the noun it modifies. In Hebrew, the adjectives agree in gender, masculine or feminine, and also in number, whether it be singular or plural, with the nouns that they modify. That is, an adjective has 4 possible forms: masculine singular, feminine singular, masculine plural, and feminine plural. So a masculine singular noun will take a masculine singular adjective, and a feminine singular noun will take a feminine singular adjective, as in the table below. And so that's what the second half of the video really went through, trying to get us to get the adjective to match the noun that it's modifying. So par gadol, para gadola.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. So all adjectives, I'm assuming, have a feminine and masculine version.
Yes, and they have a numeral version. So whether it's singular or plural. So there's 4 different forms for every adjective.
Oh, I see. Sorry, my son totally interrupted and you already covered that. I'm
Oh,
so
no.
sorry.
No, you're totally fine. I think that
Uh,
it's good to review and stuff.
okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
every adjective has 4 different forms.
That's,
So it's going to be a
yeah.
little challenging as we,
like, that's not confusing at all. So, yeah.
yeah, with Spanish, it's a little bit easier because they do have a similar grammar rule, and that took me forever to get down. But yeah, it'll come.
Yeah.
Cameron, how would you say big bulls, plural?
Big bulls.
Yeah.
So just a second, I'm thinking parrot. Parrot, yeah,
And
parrot.
if you don't want to go into
Parim. My brain just had like a little misfire. So as we are pluralizing any nouns, the noun, if it's masculine, ends in im, or if it's feminine, it ends in ot. And so I think that might be lesson 2 or 3, but it comes up pretty quickly.
Okay.
But yes, so like, for example, in our gospel context, urim and tumim, that they're masculine nouns, and then they end in im. So like Elohim, etc. So when we're taking a masculine bull, parim would be how we would do that. And if we're talking the big bulls, we would say parim gadolim.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I can see where, yeah, it will get easier because it's, so do you think it's consistently like, for the feminine, just adding the ah?
Yeah,
Or
for the
is it
most part.
consistent that way for the most part?
Yeah, at least
Okay.
in the few first lessons of Aleph with
Yeah.
Beth, I haven't noticed any major exceptions to that rule, but
Yeah.
there might be down the road.
So yeah, it's not like you're learning 4 new words every time. You just have to learn for the most part, just learn that what you're adding to those. Anyways,
Yeah.
okay.
So like
Okay.
for here, we've got the big and small adjectives. And so we've got gadol and gadola, and then there's katon and katana. And so it's kind of just adding that ah at the end, at least to these adjectives. Yeah. Masculine, singular. And then page 2 is where it really gets off the rails because it gets a little tricky because this is some intense grammar, but just taking it at a pace, and I've got some flashcards, got some different things in the works, trying to help us kind of get used to it, because the more that you hear it in lots of different contexts, I think the better we are to kind of put it in its proper context. But says when an adjective directly modifies a noun in the same phrase. So you might, like in an English sentence, if we have, it's talking about a man, and then later on in the paragraph, then it's talking about how big he is, then these rules wouldn't apply. But if it's in the same phrase, when we have an adjective that's modifying a noun in the same phrase, it also agrees in its definiteness, meaning we need to put the ha in front of it as well. Oh yeah, and takes the article prefix of ha, as in the previous examples. If an adjective or a demonstrative occurs with a definite noun but does not have a ha prefix, then it must form a sentence with an implied equivalence of is or are. So here we have ha'ish gadol. The gadol does not have the article prefix in this left example here. And so this would mean the man, and then an implied is big. Ha'ish, the man, gadol. So if we were to directly transliterate this, it would say the man big. And so there's an implied is in that kind of phrase structure there. But let's say that we put an article prefix in front of the adjective as well. Ha'ish hagadol. So if we were to directly transliterate this, it would be Ha'ish hagadol, the man, the big. And so this one would be the big man instead of the man is big, that implied. So yes, it's going to be kind of confusing, but as you keep hearing it repeated through these lessons, you'll start to get the hang of it. But I find that the grammar lessons are very helpful to me after I've listened to them for a bit, because sometimes I haven't even recognized some of that nuance as Beth is speaking. But anyway, if this is too much, don't worry about it. We're not going to really take quizzes and really drill down on the grammar, but just knowing what's kind of happening as things are forming, I think is really helpful. Knowing that ha comes into play. So when I go and listen to my Hebrew Bible, every time that I hear a noun preceded by a ha, I can kind of start picturing it in my head how it's written, and oh, the something. You'll be surprised how much you hear this article here. So here's the chart that like can rock your world because it's kind of complex. But notice that we know that the adjectives and demonstratives in row 1 below form part of the same phrase as the noun they modify, because they are all marked with a ha. So ha'ish, hagadol, hazeh. By contrast, the demonstratives in row 2 and the adjectives in row 3 do not have that article. Therefore, they must be on one side or another of an implied is. So remember, when there's adjectives that are pointing to a noun in that same phrase, but if they're missing the ha, then there is going to be that implied is verb in there. As we can see here, both of these, the second row ones have an implied is. So, ha'ish hagadol hazeh, this big man. Ze, this ha'ish hagadol, this is the big man. Ha'ish hazeh, this man, gadol, implied is big. You can see how much I'm struggling, like going from Hebrew to English. It takes a while to switch the brain over. And then likewise, let's take a look at the feminine and also with the small adjective. Ha'isha hakatana hazot. Zot ha'isha hakatana. Ha'isha hazot. Sorry, I almost said hazeh. Ha'isha hazot katana. So, even though it's only 2 pages long, well, I guess it's 3 pages long. It's enough to kind of rack your brain a little bit. So heading over to the Quizlet, let me show you if you would like to do these. I'm going to create a version on Learning in Zion as well, but I find that Quizlet is super easy to put together. So in the Beginning Biblical Hebrew class over there, you can click on Lesson 1 Grammar. So for Lesson 1, if we wanted to choose like the flashcard option, it's going to give you a phrase and its transliteration. And then you're going to want to think how to structure that in English. So for example, this one, what would that be? So we've got zot, chapara, hagadola. So zot is a feminine this, but it doesn't have the ha in front of it, right? And so there's going to be an implied is. Zot, this is, hapara, a cow, hakatana, or hagadola, sorry. Yeah. So this is a large cow. And so as we flip that card, this is the big cow. And so we can say,
Is there a difference between this is a big cow and this is the big cow? Was that on the grammar?
I
Or are
think
we not
I
there?
misspoke when I just barely said
Oh,
that. didn't I?
I was just curious, like I just couldn't remember if the grammar covered a, like
Yeah,
this is,
it's a great question. So here on the first page, so the definite article, the is the prefix, and it says there is no indefinite article like an a or an an. Instead, an indefinite noun will have no article. So if we were to say this is a cow, then we wouldn't even use any sort of ha or anything in front of it. That would just be the default would be a indefinite a or an. But anytime that we're using ha, it is the. So yeah, good catch. I misspoke when I was saying that it was a cow. This is a big cow. This is the big cow. And so let's take a look at this one here. So we've got hapar, haze, gadol. So we notice that one of them does not have the article, right? And so there's going to be an implied is. So hapar.
this bull is big.
Yeah.
You
This
get it?
bull is big.
Yes.
Yes. And so down at the
Yes.
bottom, if you're using the flashcards, you can either push the X that you want to keep it in the mix and review it again, or you can click the green check mark and click that you know it and it'll take it out. So here we've got 3 different articles. And so there's not going to be an implied is in here. So we've got hapara, hagadola, hazot. So which one would this be?
This big cow?
Yep, this big cow. All right, so the first thing we notice is that there's not an article on the, what is it? Demonstrative? I need to review my English grammar terms, but
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wow, I don't know the English
yeah,
that they're talking about, let alone.
like if you were to just ask me what's a demonstrative, I have
Yes.
no idea.
Gotta study my English grammar.
Yep. So we've got zot, and there's going to be an implied is. So this is haisha hakatana. So this is the small woman.
The small woman. The small woman.
All right, and here we've got one that's missing an article. So we'll know that there's an implied is hapar haze katon. Hapar haze katon.
Small.
So we've got this bull, and an implied is small. All right, so again, we notice that there's the article is missing, and so there's going to be an implied is. Ze hapar hakaton. Ze, this is, because it doesn't have the article, so there's an implied is. This is the small bowl. All right, all three of them have articles on this one. Hapar hagadol hazeh. So there's not an implied is, and it's going to be this big bowl. And so it's interesting that if all three of them here are having that article, there's actually not a the in the English transliteration here, that we've got this replaces the need to call for the word the. This big bowl. Takes a while to get a handle on it, but all right, let's take a look at this one. So there's one of them missing an article, and so there's going to be an implied is. Ha'isha hazot katana. So this woman is.
This woman is small.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So we've got all three of them have the article. So Ha'isha hakatana hazot.
The small woman.
Mm-hmm. This small.
This small woman. Oops.
And all three of them have an article. Hapar hakaton hazeh. So this small bowl. And then this one's missing the article, so there's going to be an implied is. Hapara hazot gadola. So
This cow is big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. The ze is missing an article, so there's an implied is. This is hapar gadol. So this one is going to have a the article. This is the big cow. Or big bull, sorry. I get my cows and bulls mixed up.
Is that the only one that has the feminine and masculine with the animals? Well, no, probably not. Maybe they're just not.
So as far as the Aleph with Beth videos are concerned, they're taking the biblical words. And so, for example, when we see Ayez is feminine, it's because that's the version that's used in the Bible. There isn't many male goats yet. The female goat is mentioned much more. And so there's Sus, but there's also Susa, which is the feminine.
Okay.
But yeah, so all of them do have a masculine and a feminine version.
Yeah.
But we haven't learned all of them yet. But they're in the Bible, there are plenty of bulls and there's plenty of cows. And so that's one that it does pull apart.
That's interesting.
As we'll do one more and then we'll go to that song that I created. It's always kind of embarrassing. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
I was so impressed with that. Seriously.
All right. So on this final example, we've got one that's missing the article. So there's going to be an implied is. So Ha'ish hazeh gadol. So this is the big man. Or no, I said that wrong. This man is big. Yeah. Whoops. Anyway, I failed the last one there. So yeah, let's take a look at, gotta find out where my thing is. So this one might be a little fast, but I can guarantee you, if you go to the original Ladod Moshe, which is Uncle Moses had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, it is so fast, and it it took me forever to get it down. So here is, well, yeah, so I've revamped it since this because there's a couple little spelling mistakes that I found, typos, and then I added some like animal pictures to go along with it. But I'll pause it. Let me run it through once, and then we'll kind of pause and take a look at some of the things really quick. And is the volume okay on it? Can you hear it? Okay.
נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי, ובתיבה הייתה פרה, שניים מכל החי, ופרה מומו, כלפי מומו, נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי, ובתיבה הייתה כבשה, שניים מכל החי, וכבשה ופרה מו, נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי, ובתיבה הייתה תרנגול, שניים מכל החי. התרנגול קוקוריקו, בכבשה ופרה מו. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי, ובתיבה הייתה סוסה, שניים מכל החי. וסוסה התרנגול קוקוריקו, וכבשה ופרה מו. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי, ובתיבה הייתה שפן, שניים מכל החי. ושפן וסוסה התרנגול קוקוריקו, וכבשה ופרה מו. נביא נוח הייתה תיבה, שניים מכל החי.
So, did you recognize any part in there? Let's see. Let's go through and kind of take a look at some of these phrases here. So, Navi means prophet. As we take a look at the three different distinctions in the Bible, we have Torah, Nevaim, and Ketuvim. So Nevaim means the prophets, and Ketuvim means the writings or the poetry. And so Navi is prophet, and then
Got Noah.
Noach, it has that sound at the end of it, which we're kind of not used to in English, but Noach, Navi Noach, Haita Teva, had an ark.
Had.
A box. And then Shnaim. So Shnaim is the masculine version of the number 2. So we did Achat, Shtaim, Shalosh, Shtaim, Shtaim, Mekol, Ahai. two of every kind. Oops. And then here's the first one. Uvateva. So, and on that ark, he had a cow. Para. Two of every kind. And the cow, and there's an implied went, moo moo. It was kind of interesting getting the transliterations of animal sounds. Let's see, and then let's take a look at another animal that we know.
So if you're just saying an animal in general, I mean, like you use the female one for you use para. Did
So
you?
this one's specific to a female cow. If you
Okay.
were talking about all of the bovine animals
Yeah.
together, you would default to the masculine bull.
Okay.
Yeah. And so here's the second word. And so we have this end, or the second animal, sorry. It is kivsa. So we see in the Aleph with Beth videos that keves is the masculine sheep and kivsa is the female version. And then the third animal we haven't learned yet. I don't know if we probably won't. I don't know if it ever comes up, but it is rooster. Tarnagol. And so I was just taking from the original E-I-E-I-O song. But I figured I'd keep it in because it has the cuckoo, and it's kind of fun to sing it, I guess. But here we have the third animal, or fourth animal, sorry, Susa. So we learned in Aleph with Beth the masculine version, which is Sus, but here it's Susa. It's a female horse, a mare. And then the fifth animal is Shafan, which, can you guess which animal makes the s sound? I always thought it was snake. I listened to the video and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna put snake on my flashcards. And I memorized it totally wrong for a couple weeks. That, oh, chiffon means snake. No, chiffon means rabbit.
Oh, funny.
So I totally messed up on that one, but just going too fast and not checking anything. But anyway, apparently rabbits go in Hebrew. So
Weird.
But yeah, so what I would recommend, because the Case family, Andrew and Beth Case, have just kind of put the challenge out there to make comprehensible input for people learning Hebrew. And so, you know, like I can't take a challenge and not do it, right? And so one of their things with taking a look at a new language is being able to be kind of inundated with it, getting lots of sources, lots of different ways. So with song, with literature, with pictures, and all of the different things, getting lots of different things in front of your face so that you can start recognizing it in lots of different contexts. And so that's what I liked about this song here, was that it was taking the female version of things that we've learned the male for, and it puts a few different words in there that we haven't learned yet, but we can kind of identify with and different things. So anyway, if you want to memorize it, great. But I find that I still sing it like all the time, all the time, but I don't get it quite right as when I did it 50,000 times to record that. Or also substituting in your own animals on those verses, and being able to kind of rework the song to kind of fit your fun animals that you might have around the house. And so like I'll substitute in my dog and my cat and all of these different ones. I don't know how they sound in in Hebrew, what their animal sounds are. I need to Google that. But anyway, if you find it helpful to kind of reference that video, or anyway, it's there. I'm working on a better video with more quality. So I took the original Ladod Moshe, I amplified it so that I took out the vocals and then just put that in the background just as kind of a rough draft. So the guitar sounds a little weird, and so I'm gonna work on getting it a little bit better for future use. But yeah, it takes me a while to complete any of those projects. Anyway, so yeah, as we transition over, any questions or comments on lesson 1 at all? How are you guys feeling with lesson 1? Would you like to move on to lesson 2? Do you think you need another week on lesson 1?
I think I need another week on it.
Yeah, it'd give me a little bit more time to come up with some other different kind of comprehensible input to put in there as well, and kind of getting some of those flashcards a little bit better on there for anyone that wants them. Yeah.
It definitely wouldn't hurt me to have another week. Whatever others want to do, though, I'm fine with.
Oh, I feel the same way. It'd be nice to have another week.
Okay, yeah. So let's take another week on lesson 1. And now that we've kind of reviewed a little bit of the grammar, it'll be interesting to go back and watch the video and try to pick out the ha and those definite articles, some of the adjectives there, and how they modify with it. But yeah. Somebody else.
I can't see. How many people do we have that were in our Sunday night class? The watch party? Do we have anyone?
Do we have anyone here that was in it?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they might show up here in a bit, but
That's okay. I just had an insight I thought of after. I'll just put it on that thread. I wasn't sure where to put it, so I'll put it in that thread where we talked about. Was this the movie we decided to go with? I think Kathy posted it originally, so
yeah, that'd be a great place to put it.
yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, so yeah, we're super excited tonight. We'll be joined by Brother Clark. Welcoming back. We've come a long ways. So that was our very first book that we did a book club on. I was just asking around if anybody else wanted to study Father Abraham, and then we've taken it for the gamut. We've studied lots of different little books here and there, and we eventually all wanted to learn Hebrew. So yeah, it's been a fun ride.
That is great. There are not a lot of people lining up to learn Hebrew these days, and I congratulate you.
Yeah, it's super fun. So, yeah, we'll give people just a few more minutes to pop on and stuff, but just kind of picking your brain, Brother Clark, like, what first got you interested in the actual Hebrew language, and like, what were some of the best tools and things that you found, some of the best resources that you learned with, and I don't know, just kind of some advice as we are starting our journey?
First question, are you all beginners with Hebrew, biblical Hebrew?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that got me started was writing. I was writing the book about Abraham. Actually, at that point, I was writing about the Genesis 22, the sacrifice of Isaac, or the binding of Isaac. And I had read a number of commentaries, many commentaries, and I began to realize that I really couldn't, I just couldn't really get into the depths of the story without knowing Hebrew, without knowing the original, Hebrew. And so I decided I had to do that. And right at that time, a man by the name of David Noel Friedman, who was the general editor of the Anchor Bible series. He's since passed away, but Truman, I was a law student at BYU, and Truman Madsen, very well connected, he had arranged for Dr. Friedman to come and teach a beginning Hebrew class at BYU. And Friedman insisted that the class remain very small, like about, I think he had a limit of like 15 people. And I found out about it by word of mouth immediately over a weekend. I immediately on Monday marched into Mother Madsen's office and never could find him. I kept going back and back. Finally, when I found him and said, "Hey, I'd like to sign up for this," he said, "How in the world did you hear about this?" He said, "I haven't even made an announcement about it." And he said, "Already," he said, "I have 12 people signed up." He said, "But yeah, you're in." And so here's, Dr. Friedman was, many people thought he was the world authority on biblical Hebrew, and I think he was. It would be like learning the gospel from Joseph Smith. So we show up to class the first day, and the whole reason I had taken this was to learn, to read Genesis 22 in Hebrew. And we're there in class, and he says, "My method of teaching is different." He said, "I'm not going to teach you vocabulary or grammar or anything." He said, until you need it, until you actually confront it and need it." And so he said, "I've selected a text for us to read and to learn from, and that text is Genesis 22." And the Spirit came to my heart so strongly that this was not by chance. And so I learned Hebrew from David Noel Friedman with Genesis 22, and that first day we had to go and learn the Hebrew alphabet, and so just point by point we would progress and learn the things we needed. So that's how I began, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's so fun. And interesting, that kind of technique or whatever that he used. Like, I'm not going to teach you the grammar until you actually need it, until it comes up and everything. So how did that arise? Like, we're learning with the Aleph with Beth video series on for free on YouTube. They've put in, they're not speaking any English. They only speak the Hebrew in a Sephardic biblical pronunciation. And there's some grammar lessons, but they say don't rush to the grammar lessons right away. Like, just try to be immersed in it right off the bat. And then as you're ready and as you need the grammar, go ahead and start sampling it, kind of a thing. So yeah, kind of interesting how that Mr. Friedman also kind of used that approach.
That is. You also asked me about resources, and I'm going to touch on that when we get into this specific discussion on Ezer. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, that's great. So let's actually go ahead and start off with a prayer. Amy Pulley's volunteered to help us out, and then we'll turn the time right over to you.
Our dear Father in heaven, we come before thee with much gratitude to be able to meet together and gain insights and insights from Brother Clark. We're so grateful for him to share his time with us. We pray that we will be touched and edified and continue to seek knowledge and be guided by thee. We pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, take it away, Brother Clark. We're excited.
Well, thank you. And So some time ago, Cameron asked me to talk for about 10 minutes on a word of my choice from the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, and I chose the word ezer, which appears in the creation story in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, where the King James translators translated it as help, or as modern translators have done, helper. So first thing is let's read Genesis 2:18. I wonder if anybody has that in the King James. Do you have that? Well, I'll read it. I've got it right here. And the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an help meet for him, and help meet for him." Help is from the Hebrew ezer. Meet is an adjective, which, by the way, is really archaic today. Nobody ever says, "Oh, that's a meat book," or "that's a meat this," or she is a meat that. That's really fallen out of use as an adjective in English. But basically, it means suitable, corresponding to, appropriate. So with that introduction, I'd like to read from a blog that appeared about 5 years ago. This was by a Dutch woman, a young Dutch woman, who gave her first name as Jimena. And she says, and the name of the blog is Ezer Kenegdo. So she says, "Do you ever wonder," speaking to women, "do you ever wonder what your purpose as a woman is? What your identity as a woman is? I'm going to take you back to Genesis, where God created woman. In Genesis 2:18, our purpose and true identity as a woman is revealed. I believe this scripture," by the way, she identified herself as a devout Catholic, Roman Catholic, member of the Catholic, let's see here. I want to get this just right. The Catholic Charismatic Renewal in the Netherlands. She lived in a little village near Amsterdam. She says, "I believe this scripture is misinterpreted by a lot of people, especially women. It is important that we understand it correctly and live up to our full potential." Then she quotes the scripture. She actually quotes the New King James Version, which reads, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." And then Jimena, spelled with a J, by the way, says, "I used to cringe whenever I heard this Bible verse. I went straight into defensive mode. I don't want to be a helper or help meet. That sounds so lame. Like I was made to be an assistant or servant to a man. This, my dear sisters, is a lie. You are made for so much more. In Hebrew, the word used is ezer kenegdo, and this is a difficult word to translate into English or any other language." Then she says, ezer has originally two meanings in Hebrew, depending on the pronunciation: to rescue or to save, and to be strong. Turns out Jimena is absolutely right. This amazing verse in Genesis is at the very heart of the creation story. And let me, by also kind of by way of introduction, tell you what some of our leaders have said about the creation of woman. President Hinckley said, God created Eve as the crowning of his glorious work. J. Reuben Clark, who was in First Presidency, no relation, by the way, said, so came Eve, without whom the whole creation of the world and all that was in the world would have been in vain, and the purposes of God would have come to naught. There's an interesting little backstory or further to the story about this Jimena in her blog. As I mentioned, this was posted about 5 years ago. And then on her blog in March of 2021, so roughly 2 years ago, there appeared this. Dear reader, my name is Lucas Carroll. I am Jimena's husband, and I feel it is necessary to post this update on Jimena's website so people who visit know what has happened. Back in 2018, Jimena started making some changes in her life to focus more on the Lord. These people are Catholic. And it was also around this time she built this website to share some of her ideas. At the end of 2018, she started getting sick and got diagnosed with cancer. After months of intense therapy, she got cleared and was full of hope. It was also around this time we started dating. Jimena and I had a short but very intense relationship, and very quickly, we knew we wanted to get married. Unfortunately, the cancer returned in the beginning of 2020. However, we did not let this change our plans and continued with our wedding plans and prayed for her healing. On September 10th, 2020, our dream came true and we got married before the Lord. Sadly, Jimena passed away days later and went to be with the Lord on September 17th, 2020. As sad as I and her other loved ones are, we rest assured in the fact that we will one day be reunited with Jimena in the presence of our Savior. That touches me, I got to tell you. And to me, it's so fascinating that this is, happened all in regard to this website about Ezer Kenegdo. The many modern translations, instead of saying help, say helper. And of course, you probably heard the word help meet, which is a conflation of these two words, help and meet. And over time, many people have just said, help me. And it's facially been seen as a thing of inferiority, as the woman was kind of made to be his assistant or someone inferior. Let me read to you what a scholar by the name of Phyllis Tribble said in 1978. The English word helper suggests an assistant, a subordinate, indeed an inferior, while the Hebrew word ezer carries no such connotation. To the contrary, in the Hebrew scriptures, this word often describes God as the superior who creates and saves Israel. And you see this in the book of Psalms. God is the Ezer of Israel. And if you want to call it helper, that's fine, but he's someone with power, who has the power to reach down and help Israel. This is no inferiority whatsoever. Phyllis Tribble proposed so that we change our paradigm of what Ezer Kenegdo means. The Biblical Archaeology Review, several years later, proposed that the translation should be a power equal to him. God created a power equal to him. A man by the name of Walter Kaiser, 1988, suggested a power or strength corresponding to him. A number of years later, a Dutch scholar by the name of Ed Noort said, this phrase implies neither superiority nor inferiority, but helping each other as equals. And then you would ask me a few minutes ago about possible resources to help in your mastery of Hebrew. There's a 16-volume set, which I'm not suggesting anybody gets. I mean, it's extremely expensive, and it's called I've got volume 11 here, Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament. And this is the world, the greatest world authority on keywords in the Hebrew Bible. Every major word in the Hebrew Bible has been dealt with by a prominent, preeminent scholar, Hebrew scholar somewhere in the world, and exploring every facet, every nuance of the meaning of this. And I am going to quote from this. First, I will say that one of the, in my opinion, particularly is to begin learning Hebrew, one of the very helpful things is to be able to consult different translations. Because whoever, has learned any other language knows that there's no such thing as a perfect translation or a corresponding one-to-one translation. And there many times there are word plays and nuances, and particularly where we're talking about a dead language like Hebrew. Of course, with the state of Israel, they resurrected the ancient Hebrew language, but still, I mean, we're talking about a very, very ancient dead language here in terms of the Hebrew Bible. So it really does help to be able to, in my opinion, to be able to consult several translations of the Bible. Now, this can be easily done online. Bible Hub and other resources are there for free. You can just pick your translation and see what it says. For this particular verse, I brought 3 translations with me in here to the other room. One is the Revised English Bible. And if I can read this, the light's a little, let's see here, I almost need, this print is a little small. Let's see here. Let me see if this helps. Okay. This does help. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I shall make a partner suited to him." A partner suited. Well, that expands our horizon a little bit of understanding. Now I'm going to read from a translation by Robert Alter, Alter, considered one of the premier Hebrew scholars in the world. In fact, several years ago, he just finished his monumental translation of the entire Hebrew Bible. The stuff in Isaiah is particularly good, but this is his Genesis translation. I want to read you his take on this verse. And the Lord God said, "It is not good for the human to be alone. I shall make him a sustainer beside him." A sustainer beside him. Robert Alter. However, by far and away, the most acclaimed English translation of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, first 5 books of Moses, is by a man by the name of Richard Elliott Friedman, Friedman. Richard Elliott, Elliot, Friedman. When you read the endorsements about his translation, it's off the charts. The endorsements are from like a who's who in the world of biblical scholarship, and it's like they don't quite have words enough to praise this translation. And this, what Friedman says, is so powerful. He translates this phrase this way: And Yahweh, God said, Yahweh is, that's Jehovah. We could get into that, but we won't right now. And Yahweh, God said, it's not good for the human to be by himself. I'll make for him a strength corresponding to him. And then Dr. Friedman says, in Genesis 1, this is his commentary. In Genesis 1, man and woman are both created in the image of God. In Genesis 2, they are corresponding strengths. However one interprets subsequent stories and laws in the Torah, this essential equality of worth and standing introduces them. So, and the prophet Joseph, I love his statement given that he made right towards the end of his life. He said, I wish to go back to the beginning of creation. If we start right, it is easy to go right all the time. But if we start wrong, it is hard to get right. And then he talked about the council in heaven. Well, thinking with his statement in mind, now let me read this from our proclamation on the family. All human, and so this takes us back to the beginning, back to when we lived with our heavenly parents. Family proclamation, all human beings, male and female, are created in the image of God. Each is a beloved spirit or daughter of heavenly parents, and as such, each has a divine nature and destiny. To understand our role here as human beings, as men and women, we have to get this verse right. We have to see what it's really saying. King James translators did a fabulous job with what and this is 500 years ago. And so we know more. It's interesting. I'm going to mention some things from the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament. Often the acronym is TDOT, Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament, volume 11. There, this article on Ezer. And they point out that in fact, in Hebrew and related languages, the meaning of the core word Oz, or you say as, but Oz, is essentially constant, and it means be or become or make strong, powerful, or strength or power. Nouns that derive from this root have the meaning of strength, power, might, refuge, protection. And then it points out that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, God is mentioned as an Ezer, quote, in the benediction in the marriage ritual. And here's the benediction as enunciated in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Blessed by the God, blessed by, so this couple is being married, and what's pronounced upon them is blessed by the God of Israel, who is an Ezer. So here you have two people getting married, one of whom was described in the creation account. This woman is an Ezer, and God is sanctioning this marriage, overseeing it, and he's an Ezer. So there is no inferiority here. In fact, Brigham Young said, and I wonder if I can find it. If I can, I'll just paraphrase it. I actually wrote about this stuff in a book I wrote several years ago, but let's see here. I thought I had flagged this quote by Brigham Young. Brigham Young said, women are more ready. Now, please, sisters, don't get a big head here when I read this, okay? I mean, try to be a little humble, okay? women are more ready to do and love the right than men. For women are altogether of a finer nature with stronger moral inclinations. And I'll tell you, he was talking about my wife, Shirley, and my wife, I met Shirley, he was talking about my wife. My wife's name is Mila. But he was also talking in general. And, I remember growing up, my father was a great man. He passed away about 3 years ago. And he had given me many priesthood blessings over the course of my life. I actually served as a counselor to him when he was a bishop once, and a great man. But I'll tell you, when I really needed some strength from heaven, some special blessings, I talked to my mom. She had a special line to heaven and still does. And so when we see the reality and the power in this verse that God created an ezer kenegdo, a strength corresponding to this man with these special capabilities and powers, then we begin to understand our role. Now, let me just finish with this, reading something from, and it may surprise you, I'm going to read this from Pope Francis. In 2014, the Vatican sponsored a thing they call the Humanum Colloquium, or Humanum event in the Vatican. Our church sent President Henry W. Eyring to it, and he gave a talk about marriage. And this was quite a big deal. But in his open address in this colloquium, Pope Francis said this. He talks about the word complementarity. And he said, this word does not roll lightly off the tongue. It is a word into which many meanings are compressed. It refers to situations where one of two things adds to, completes, or fulfills a lack in the other. But complementarity is much more than that. To reflect upon, and I love this particular statement, he says, to reflect upon complementarity is nothing less than to ponder the dynamic harmonies at the heart of all creation. That's absolutely true. He said, it is fitting that you have gathered here in this international colloquium to explore the complementarity of man and woman. This complementarity is at the root of marriage and family. For the family grounded in marriage is the first school where we learn to appreciate our own and others' gifts, and where we begin to acquire the arts of cooperative living. This is online, by the way, you can Google it. Complementarity will take many forms as each man and woman brings his or her distinctive contributions to their marriage and to the formation of their children, his or her personal richness, personal charisma. Complementarity becomes a great wealth. It is not just a good thing, but it is also beautiful. So that's what I wanted to say. It took a little more than 10 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but there we go.
I love it. Like, what a great way to take a look at that Hebrew word there. So what other places is it used throughout the Torah, or is it kind of located there in Genesis?
It's used, let's see, I believe the Theological Dictionary in this article gives actually the number of usages. The most telling is in Psalms, where repeatedly it says God is an ezer to Israel, a helper, one who sustains or lifts up. So, and I'm sorry, I don't have that right on the tip of my tongue about the number of times it occurs.
But yeah, it's used repeatedly and stuff. I'm gonna have to go do just a word study on all of that. It's so interesting how the different translations take it and have their own kind of meanings or nuances with it. But I was just looking there on Bible Hub, with the different translations. And some of the ones that you were mentioning aren't even on there. How do you find all of these? I am Googling and shopping for the different ones. Let's see. Let me see if I got them right. So the Friedman one and
No,
the,
that's not going to be on Bible Hub, nor is Robert Alter's on Bible Hub, but I
Mhm.
doubt the REB Revised English Bible is on Bible Hub either, unfortunately.
yeah, so I was Googling those so that I could look at purchasing copies of those kind of translations.
Here is, it's kind of a risky picture on Robert Alter's book on Genesis. It's
Okay.
Adam and Eve and fall. But there's a picture of his saying the Revised English Bible. And I'm not actually suggesting you buy any of this stuff, but there's a copy of that. And let's see, did I hold up Friedman's? Friedman's is interesting because it gives the original Hebrew with the English translation, then below just a little commentary. And Friedman's the master. He is absolute master of the Torah translation. So.
What kind of background does Friedman have? Is he like from a Jewish context? Like his name sounds like it, right?
Absolutely. And Richard Elliott Friedman is the author of The Hidden Face of God, author of several books, earned the degree of Doctor of Theology at Harvard, and was a visiting scholar at Oxford, Cambridge, and the American School of Oriental Research in Jerusalem. He is professor of Hebrew and comparative lit, holds the Catane Chair at the University of California, San Diego. But like I said, when you start reading the endorsements and see who's writing, page after page of endorsements, and they just can't say enough about his accomplishment here.
Yeah.
So, I probably should say also, I mean, in the world of biblical studies and biblical scholarship, there's never unanimity. I mean, there's never everybody all, you can't find any translation where everybody agrees on. In fact, I am aware of some scholars who say, no, this is wrong. But you just have to look at what the great scholars consistently conclude on this, and it's undeniable. I mean, it's incontrovertible in my judgment. So if you look hard enough, you can find other things out there that say different things. But when you're talking about scholars with a stature and talking about the theological picture of the Old Testament, and it's pretty clear. So.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, because I had never heard of either Altman or Friedman there, and so I'm excited to kind of dive into those. I've really been interested the past couple of years on looking at all these different translations, and like you said, just kind of comparing them and seeing what is cohesive and what different nuances there are with them. But yeah.
Yeah, and so Robert Alter has a massive 3-volume thing of his whole translation of the Hebrew Bible, but you can also buy the Genesis by itself. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. And just opening it up if anyone else has questions or anything. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to be thinking of other questions. Those are the ones that came to my mind. But
okay, so the blog site, I'm getting a question. What is the blog site of the Dutch woman?
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he just said.
You said that. Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's great. And so the domain is it's EZERKENEGDO.org. I wonder if I should just hold this thing up. Can you see that or not? Maybe anyway, EZERKENEGDO So
Yeah.
Jimena is her first name, and written with a J, pronounced Jimena in Dutch. And I'm sorry, there was another question I didn't see what it was.
Yeah. So the other one was, what are some other words that haven't been able to be translated clearly?
Take your pick. I mean, you know, there are a number of words in the Hebrew Bible that only appear once.
Mhm.
And so you can't cross-reference this to any other passage. And and so those particular kinds of words, and I don't have any right at the moment that I could that come to mind, but there are a number of these, and you can find them throughout the Hebrew Bible. And so it's like they have no point of reference. You just have to get it from context, you know. And but also some of the words in Isaiah wrote his poetry is kind of it has apocryphated form, and I'm not even sure I'm saying that correctly, but something like that. I believe that's how they say it, where it's shortened forms of words, poetic forms, and so some of those have been hard for people to translate. But there are many words that are many words that are disputed. I mean, you can't read too far into the Hebrew Bible without. In fact, there's a whole massive, I don't know if industry is the right word, or a whole massive effort by scholars who that's what many of them do is take a passage and say, look, this particular word has been understood this way for centuries, but you know what? When you look at cognates in other Semitic languages, so Hebrew is a Semitic language, and ancient Israel was surrounded by kingdoms that spoke different Semitic languages, and so if you could find a cognate of this word in other languages and know what those mean, it may inform your understanding of what the word is in Hebrew. And in fact, that's what I was reading to you about this article in TDOT, where it says even related languages, the meaning of this is essentially constant: strong, powerful, strength, power, might, refuge, protection. So that can inform, but yeah, there are tons of disputed readings out there, and you'll find them all over. So
Interesting.
What's the name of the book that you just referenced? Well, not just, but that you had written, not the Abraham one, but
it's called Echoes of Eden.
oh, awesome.
So
That's a beautiful book. I love that book.
oh, you're very kind. You're very kind. Thank you. My wife says it's a good one.
Yeah, I was wanting to do that one, the second one, and then we got on some other different book tangents and different things. But oh man, Echoes of Eden is a perfect companion with the Blessings of Abraham book, and really comparing the Adam and Eve story and everything with it. It's quite amazing. That one is the available audiobook on Deseret bookshelf there, which is amazing. I wish the Blessings of Abraham was an audiobook so that we could keep listening to that one always.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Powerful.
Yeah. Do you have any future books or things that you're working on? Maybe that's
for a number of years. I've been writing a book about the first vision, and I just didn't realize how much there is out there, and how powerful the material we have. And what's interesting to me is that the one of the criticisms of Prophet Joseph by non-LDS people has been, oh gee, we have these different accounts, and some of them say different things. There's a book called let's see here, I don't have it in front of me. It's by Stephen Prothero, Prothero, called The American Jesus: How the Son of God Became a National Icon. And he actually, in his own words, recounts the first vision story. And then he talks about, just briefly, talks about the different accounts. This guy is a devout Catholic. He was, and maybe still is, I don't know, head of the religion department at Boston University. He's a very credentialed man. And he said, he said critics of Joseph Smith point out these discrepancies in these accounts. He said, that's much ado about nothing. He said, when you look closely at these accounts, all the major elements are there. And then, I mean, he says the discrepancies are just trivial. Well, what I've found is one of the big discrepancy that people point out, and I'm not going to go into this right now, but I'll just say this. One of the big discrepancies, when you look carefully and read other things about Joseph, was other revelations he had, it's no discrepancy at all. In fact, it's rather amazing. In fact, I'll just say this one thing real quick. Fawn Brodie, David O. McKay's niece, wrote a book, I think it was published in the 1950s, called No Man Knows My History, about Joseph Smith. And Hugh Nibley, in response, wrote a little book called No Ma'am, That's Not History. And Nibley pointed out, and just kind of pulled the rug out from under her. It was really interesting. One of the things she said in that book, so in the 50s, when she wrote this, when she published this, there were two accounts that we knew about of the first vision. One, of course, the famous one in our scriptures, 1838 account that scribes helped him polish, and then the 1842 account, the Wentworth letter. Well, Fawn Brodie said, gee, here it is 18 years after this thing is supposed to have occurred, this, what he calls the first vision, and this vision he talks about. And it's clear he just made this stuff up. I mean, 18 years later, and he just now is just telling us about it. Come on. Well, a very interesting thing happened. And I think it was 1969, Paul Chessman was a grad student at BYU. He was doing research on the first vision, and he was in the historian's office in Salt Lake. And lo and behold, he was shown something that wasn't out there in the public domain. He was shown a handwritten account of the first vision, handwritten by Joseph Smith himself in 1832. It's a treasure, and it emphasizes different things than what is emphasized. The 1838 account was in response to a lot of stuff about, rumors about the church, and just trying to tear down the church and Joseph Smith. 1832 account was his own handwritten account of how emotionally it affected him and how he came to this. And when Fawn Brodie saw that, she immediately decided, oh, I better revise my book. And she went to the publisher and said, I got to make a revision here. She revised her book. And she said, what she said in the book was, she said, look at this. These accounts are different. See what a fraud he is? Well, what Brody did not say was, oh, by the way, I happened to be wrong when I published my book and said, he made it up in 1838. He didn't have a clue. 6 years earlier, he was talking about it. And in fact, we have many journals of people telling how he talked about it in his life. And in fact, I happen to have several ancestors who were his good friends, his confidants. A couple of them were his bodyguards, including Philo Dibble and John Lowe Butler. Philo Dibble was there when Joseph received Section 76, the revelation on, the degrees of glory. And Philo Dibble gave us the best account of what was happening there. And Philo said, and he's quoted all the time for this, he said, Joseph he said he was dressed in black, but he said light was literally emanating from his body, from his person, and from his face. And he said Joseph would look up. Well, they were both looking up, Joseph and Sidney. They were looking up and as if they were watching something. We would, in our day, would say as if they were watching a movie. But they were looking up, and Joseph would say, I see this, this, this. And Sidney would say, yes, Brother Joseph, that's right. I see it too. And I also see this, this, this. And then Joseph would say, yes, that's right, Sidney, I see that. So there were two witnesses, people in the room, one of which was my ancestor. And anyway, I got to tell you, I love the prophet Joseph. And speaking about Hebrew, isn't it interesting? To me, it's fascinating that here he's this instrument of God in translating this dead language written on these plates, the Book of Mormon. Let me just say, many years ago, when I was attending a Society of Biblical Literature annual convention, by the luck of the draw, just by sheer luck and blessing, I had dinner, just he and I, with a man by the name of Bruce Metzger. And Bruce Metzger was the editor-in-chief of the New Revised Standard Version, which many think is the greatest version. We're talking about the whole Bible, Old New Testament, and even the Apocrypha, but many think it's the greatest biblical Bible translation outside of King James. Anyway, you cut it, it's a great translation, accepted, read by many congregations. But Bruce Metzger was an incredible scholar, and he was an incredible man. He just a man full of light, not of our faith, a man full of light and goodness. And it was just one of the great events of my life to have dinner with him and talk to him. Well, this effort to produce this book took an international team of scholars many years, and humongous effort, colossal effort to produce this translation. And you compare that with what Joseph did in how many days? Jack Welch figured it out. Can't remember how many days. Was it in the 50s? I can't remember. You can find that online, but didn't consult a dictionary, didn't need to consult an international consortium of scholars. Wow, just given to him. And then after he does that, lo and behold, he has this yearning to learn Hebrew the hard way. and he hires this Hebrew teacher, what's his name, Joshua Satius, I think, and rounds up the brethren and has Hebrew class, and goes home one evening and writes in his journal, "My soul delights in reading the word of the Lord in the original." And that strikes me. I mean, it speaks to me. I heard Truman Madsen say that the best two students in the class, can you guess who the best two students in the class were?
In
Anybody?
Truman Madson's class?
In Joseph Smith's Hebrew class.
Oh, gotcha.
Anybody? Venture a guess? One was Joseph Smith, and the other doesn't come too much of a surprise. It was Orson Pratt.
Okay.
They were phenomenal. Guess who the worst student was, according to worst student was Heber C. Kimball, who hated it and just couldn't get into it. And one day, according to Truman, one day Joseph got a little impatient with Heber C. and said, "Heber, you parse that verb or I'm going to whip you." And Heber looked up and very meekly said, "Start whipping, Brother Joseph." Anyway,
I love it.
so, well, that's I answered in a more expanded way than what your question was. I'm sorry, but anyway.
That's great. I love it. That last thing gives me lots of ideas. When we get to actual parsing, there's going to be some whipping going on. I love it. I love all those little anecdotal things there too. So fun. Well, yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up on that portion? It's been so fun. I'm excited to go do my word study on Ezra, and really dive into that.
Well,
yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and coming on and spending your evening with us. Yeah, it's
thank
interesting
you.
group.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Such beautiful insights. It does just make you want to dive in. So thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for spending your time and good luck with this venture. I mean, I think that we all probably feel like the prophet Joseph, our soul's delight in reading the word of the Lord in the original and getting back closer to the meaning of some of these things. So good luck in your venture.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll take just kind of a 5-minute break and then start back up with the later group. So thank you all for coming on and joining us tonight, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Bye.
Are you going to stop the recording?
Yeah, thank you.